The gas light in my Civic had been on for maybe 40 minutes when I finally admitted to myself I'd screwed up. I was somewhere between Kingman and Seligman on Old 66, June 2022, and I'd taken what my phone swore was a shortcut off the interstate. The shortcut was real. The gas stations on it, apparently, were not. 2 of them boarded up. 1 just gone, like the pumps had been unbolted and hauled away. My tank went from empty to actually empty around 11 at night. The car coasted maybe another quarter mile before it gave up on a slight downhill and rolled to a stop on the shoulder. Middle of nowhere, rust-colored dirt on both sides, some kind of shrub I couldn't name, and stars. More stars than I'd ever seen from Ohio. My phone had 1 bar that came and went. It was still 90 degrees at that hour, the kind of dry heat that pulls the water out of your eyes. I sat there for a minute doing the math. AAA would take hours out here, if they'd even come. I could sleep in the car and figure it out at sunrise. I could walk. Walking sounded stupid until I turned around and saw, maybe half a mile back, a building I hadn't noticed when I drove past it. No sign, no lit sign, anyway. But there was a shape to it, low and long, that screamed motel, that squat 1960s roadside layout you see in every documentary about Route 66. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and a warm bottle of water, and I walked. Up close, it looked worse than from the road. The stucco was cracked in long lines. 2 of the windows on the end had plywood over them. The parking lot had maybe 4 cars in it, but they were parked at weird angles, like whoever left them hadn't cared about the lines. One of them, a brown Buick, had a tarp bungeed over the hood. The front office had a door propped open with a rock, actual rock, not a doorstop. Inside, there was a fluorescent tube buzzing behind a plastic panel and the smell of old coffee and something else. Cigarettes, but stale, the way it gets in fabric. Behind the counter was an old man. 70s, maybe older. He was reading a paperback with the cover folded back so I couldn't see the title. He didn't look up right away. He finished his sentence. Then he set the book face down and looked at me over a pair of drugstore glasses. "Ran out of gas," I said. "About half a mile up." "Mm-hmm. I saw your place. Do you have a landline I could use?" "My phone's not really working." He looked at me for a long second. Not mean, just measuring. "Room's $20, he said. "I don't need a room, I just need to call somebody." "Room's $20, he said again, exactly the same way, same tone, same pause after it, like he hadn't heard me, or like the number was the only thing he was allowed to say. I stood there. Behind him on the wall was a pegboard with keys hanging off it. Most of the hooks had keys. That was the first thing that stuck with me. If half these rooms were empty, why were most of the keys on the board? Where were the guests' keys? And I could hear people. That was the second thing. Through the back wall of the office, real faint, a television, some kind of talk show, canned laughter, then a woman's voice saying something I couldn't make out. 2 rooms down from that, a man coughing, a steady, wet cough. From somewhere further, a baby, or maybe a cat. I honestly couldn't tell. Occupied, definitely occupied, but there wasn't a single light on in any of the windows I'd walked past, not one. I told myself the curtains were just thick. Blackout curtains in the desert made sense. "Sun beats down all day, you'd want them." "Do you take card?" I asked, mostly to see what he'd say. "Cash. I've got 20 in the car." He noted once. He still hadn't smiled, hadn't frowned, hadn't done anything with his face. His hands were folded on top of the paperback. Big hands, clean nails, a wedding ring worn thin on top from decades of something. "Sir," I said, "can I be honest? I'm trying to figure out if there's a payphone or something. I don't actually need to stay." He tilted his head maybe an inch, studied me. Then he said, "No phone here for guests. Room's $20. You want it or not?" Behind me, in the parking lot, I heard a door open, not the office door. One of the room doors, further down. I didn't turn around, but I heard it, and I heard someone step out onto the concrete walkway, and then I heard nothing. No footsteps going anywhere, just somebody standing outside, in the dark, at 11 at night, with all their lights off. "Let me think about it," I said. "I'll be right back." He said. He picked up the paperback. I walked out of the office at a normal pace. That took effort. I did not look at the walkway. I heard the door I'd heard open earlier close again, slow, when I got about 10 feet past it. Nothing dramatic, just a click. I walked back to my car. I got in. I locked the doors, which was a stupid thing to do because the windows were half down and I hadn't started the engine, but I locked them anyway. I sat there with my phone held up at the windshield until I got 2 bars and I called my buddy Reese back home. He picked up on the 4th ring, groggy. Ohio was 2 hours ahead. I told him where I was, read him the mile marker off the sign I'd passed, described the motel, described the old man, described the cars parked crooked, and the lights that weren't on, and the rooms that weren't quiet. Reese was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Don't go back in there. Just sit in your car. I'll figure something out." He called me back 9 minutes later. He'd found a truck stop on the map about 20 clicks west. He was going to call them, pay over the phone for a can of gas, and get somebody to bring it out. I told him that sounded insane and expensive. He told me to shut up and wait. I waited 3 hours in that car. I did not sleep. I watched the motel in the rear view. Twice I saw the office door open and the old man step out onto the concrete, look up the highway in my direction, and go back inside. He didn't wave. He didn't walk toward me. He just looked. Around 2 in the morning, a pickup rolled up behind me, and a kid, maybe 19 years old, got out with a red plastic gas can. Reese had gotten hold of a guy who worked nights at the truck stop and offered him $100 to drive it out personally. The kid was chewing gum and did not seem interested in my story. He poured the gas, took a photo of my license plate for his boss, and drove off. I made it to Flagstaff by sunrise and filed up properly and slept in the parking lot of a Denny's. I did not think about that motel much for a while. Then in the fall, somebody on a road trip forum posted a thread about a place off Old 66 that matched it exactly. Same old man, same $20, same feeling. A couple of other people chimed in. One of them said a small paper out of Kingman had run something on it. I found the article. Local reporters had gone out there with a photographer. Turned out the motel wasn't licensed anymore, hadn't been for years. The old man wasn't keeping any guest register, wasn't reporting income. Some of the people staying there were people who, for their own reasons, didn't want their names in a system. Ex-spouses looking for them, warrants, debts. One woman had been there almost 2 years. Nobody in the article claimed anything violent had happened. It was just a place that existed off the grid, quietly in the desert, for people who needed to not exist for a while. The reporters asked the old man why he didn't just shut it down. He told them people needed somewhere to go. Then he asked them to leave. I think about it sometimes, when I'm driving late, not because anything happened, because nothing did. I stood in that office for maybe 2 minutes, and something in the back of my head said no, and I listened, and I've never been sure what exactly I was saying no to. This happened in April of 2022, one of those Phoenix afternoons where the asphalt already feels like a stove, even though it's technically still spring. I remember because I had just gotten off a double at work and my back was doing that thing where it hurts in a spot I can't actually reach. I stopped at the Fry's on 19th Avenue. The one near the strip mall with the tax place and the payday loan place and the taco spot that used to be a Blockbuster. You know the type. I only needed 3 things: bread, milk, some kind of frozen dinner I could put in the microwave and eat standing up. I was in there maybe 11 minutes. When I came out, the sun was doing that low angle where everything turns orange and the shadows of the light poles stretch across the whole parking lot. I had parked further out than I needed to because I hate the aisles closest to the door. Too many carts, too many people backing out without looking. My car was in the second to last row. As I walked up to it, I noticed the SUV parked in the spot next to mine. A white one, some kind of Toyota, and there was a woman inside. I only glanced at first. That thing you do where your eyes catch movement and you look before you even decide to look, and I saw her shoulders. That's the part I remember most clearly. Her shoulders were shaking in this way that wasn't crying, exactly. It was something past crying. Her forehead was pressed against the top of the steering wheel, and her whole upper body was going up and down like she couldn't get enough air in. I slowed down. I didn't mean to. My legs just kind of slowed. She was maybe 40, maybe older. I couldn't really tell. Brown hair pulled back, but a lot of it had fallen out of the tie. There was a plastic fries bag on the passenger seat. Just one bag. She hadn't even taken her keys out of the ignition. I could see the little chain hanging down, some kind of purple charm on it. I kept walking. I told myself she probably wanted to be alone. That's what I would want, I thought. If it was me, I'd want people to just walk past and pretend they didn't see. I got to my car, unlocked it, put my grocery bag on the passenger seat, sat down, closed the door, and I could still hear her. Through her closed window and my closed window, in a parking lot with a highway a block away and the sound of someone's shopping cart rattling somewhere behind me, I could still hear this woman crying. Not loud. That's the part I want you to understand. It wasn't loud. It was just the kind of sound your body picks up on even when there's other noise. I started my engine. The AC came on and blew hot air at my face because it always takes a minute in Phoenix. I put my hand on the gear shift, and I just sat there. I don't know how long, probably not as long as it felt. My hand was on the shift, and my foot was on the brake, and I was looking straight ahead at the concrete wall in front of my parking spot. There was a piece of gum flattened on the wall, pink. That's what I was looking at. I kept thinking about my mom, which was weird because my mom was fine. My mom was at home probably watching one of those cooking shows she likes, but I kept thinking about her anyway. About the year after my dad died, when she used to sit in her car in the garage for a long time before coming inside, and how one day I asked her about it, and she said sometimes the house was too loud, even when it was quiet. I didn't know what she meant at the time. I was 15. I turned the engine off. I sat there another few seconds with my hand on the key. My heart was doing something. Not pounding exactly, just present, like it wanted me to know it was there. Then I got out. I closed my door quietly. I walked around the back of my car and up to the driver's side of the white SUV, and I stood there for a second, because now that I was there, I didn't know what I was doing. What are you even supposed to do? There's no protocol. I knocked on her window, 2 soft knocks, with one knuckle. She looked up. Her face was wrecked, mascara everywhere, mouth open, and she just stared at me like she was trying to figure out what I was, like her brain was too slow to process another human right then. I didn't smile. That felt wrong. I just said, kind of quiet so she could hear me through the glass, "I don't know what happened, but I'm here." That was it. That was all I said. She looked at me for a long time. Maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10, I don't know. Long enough that I started thinking about backing away and pretending this whole thing didn't happen. My hands were sweating. I put them in my back pockets. Then she reached over and unlocked the passenger door. I walked around and got in. The plastic fries bag was still there, so I picked it up and put it on the floor. There was a package of hot dog buns and a bottle of Gatorade in it. Blue. I sat down. She didn't say anything. She put her head back against the headrest and closed her eyes and just breathed. Big, shaky breaths. I didn't ask what happened. I want to be clear about that. I never asked. Not once. The whole time I was in that car, it felt like the wrong thing. Like the answer would have made it about me being curious instead of her being okay. At one point, she said, "I'm sorry." Just that. And I said, "Don't be." And she cried more, but quieter, and I put my hand on her arm and left it there. We sat like that for about half an hour. I know because at some point, I looked at the clock on her dashboard, and then I looked at it again a while later. Cars came and went. Somebody's kid was screaming in the aisle behind us for a good 10 minutes. The sun kept going down. Eventually, she opened her eyes and wiped her face with the bottom of her shirt. She looked at me and she almost laughed, this weird little breath that was almost a laugh. She said, "Thank you." And I said, "Yeah, that was pretty much it." I got out. I closed her door. I went back to my car and I drove home, and I put the frozen dinner in the microwave, and I ate it standing up like I planned. I never learned her name. She never asked mine. I've been to that Fry's probably 100 times since, and I've never seen her again. I don't know what happened to her that day. I don't know if it was a phone call in the parking lot or something she'd been carrying for a year or something she found out in the store. I'll never know. That's the honest truth. People ask me sometimes if I have any stories, like interesting things that have happened to me, and I never tell them this one because nothing happens in it. Nobody dies. There's no twist. It's just a woman crying in a Toyota in Phoenix in April. But I think about it more than almost anything else that's ever happened to me. Because I could have just driven away. That was the easier thing. That was the thing my hand was already doing on the gear shift. I don't know why I turned the engine off. I really don't. Something in me just did it before I decided to. And I know, the way you know some things without needing anyone to confirm them for you, that turning that engine off was the most important thing I did that year. Maybe that decade. I'm not being dramatic. I'm just telling you what's true. Sometimes the thing isn't a story. Sometimes the thing is a woman with her forehead on a steering wheel and a plastic bag on the passenger seat. And you either stop or you don't. I stopped. The building sat on Ross Avenue, 12 stories of glass and beige stone, the kind of mid-rise that goes for around $8-10 million if the parking garage checks out. I had been the listing agent for 6 months. 6 months of open walks, HVAC inspections, elevator certs, walking the roof with 2 different structural engineers because the second one didn't trust the first. I knew that building. I knew which stairwell door on 8 stuck in the summer and which one on 10 had a scuffed kick plate from a mover's dolly. I knew where the janitors kept their carts. The buyer's name was Marcus. He came in through a broker out of Houston, all cash, LLC formed in Delaware 2 months before the offer. His financials were clean. His references were clean. He wanted the walkthrough on a Thursday morning in mid-November, alone, no assistant, no inspector, said he liked to feel a building before he signed. I've been in commercial for 11 years. Buyers say weird stuff. I didn't think about it. He showed up in a gray suit, no tie, holding a paper coffee cup from the shop on the corner of Pearl and Bryan. That already stuck with me a little because that shop isn't on any map app worth using. It's a walk-in place tucked between 2 buildings, no signage on the street. Locals go there. Marcus was flying in from Miami, according to his broker. I told myself he probably Googled it. We started in the lobby. He nodded at the security desk like he was clocking in, and the guard on duty, a guy I'd known half a year, gave him a look, just a beat too long. Then Marcus asked me if I wanted to take the stairs up or the elevator. Small thing, but he asked it like he was giving me a choice between 2 things he already knew about, not like a guy in a new building. I said the elevator. He pressed 8 without asking what floor. I remember thinking, okay, maybe the broker told him about the anchor tenant on 8. Fine. But when we stepped off, he turned right. The anchor tenant is left. Right takes you toward the service corridor and the freight elevator. He walked 20 feet down that corridor before he stopped, kind of smiled to himself, and turned back around. Sorry, he said. Got turned around. He hadn't looked at a floor plan the whole morning. I hadn't handed him one. We did 8. We did 9. On 10, he asked about the fire riser room before I mentioned it existed. Every floor has one, sure, but they're behind unmarked doors. He pointed at the right door on 10 without pausing. I stood there with the master key in my hand for maybe 2 seconds too long before I opened it. Previous owner walked me through the drawings, he said, without me asking. Just want to see it live. The drawings don't show room numbers on interior doors. I have looked at those drawings 100 times. By 11, I had a low, quiet feeling in my stomach. Not fear, more like the feeling you get when you're on a phone call and you realize the person on the other end already knows what you're about to say. Marcus was polite. He asked good questions. He commented on the light in the Northeast conference room, which does get nice light in the late morning, and he commented on it at exactly the right time to notice it, around 11:15. On 12, the mechanical floor, he did the thing I keep coming back to. The mechanical floor has 2 chillers and a boiler and about a dozen unmarked panels. There's a small alcove behind the second chiller where the previous facilities manager used to keep a folding chair. He'd smoke back there when it rained. He retired in 2019. The chair was still there, folded, leaning against the wall, covered in 3 years of dust. Nobody used it. Nobody I had shown the building to had ever gone back that far. Marcus walked around the second chiller, saw the chair, and said, "Huh, still there." He said it soft, like to himself. Then he caught me watching him and his face changed, just slightly, like a guy who had said the quiet part out loud. "Old chair," he said. "You see them in every mechanical room. Guys hide back there to smoke." He was right, you do, but he had said, "still." I asked him then. I don't know why I picked that moment. Maybe because we're alone on 12 and the chillers were loud and my voice felt smaller than it should have. "Have you been here before?" He looked at me. He smiled. He has one of those smiles that doesn't move his eyes. "No," he said. "All these buildings are the same though. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all." We finished the walkthrough in 20 minutes. He shook my hand in the lobby and said he'd see me at closing. His hand was cold, but it was November and he'd been holding the coffee cup. The sale closed the following Tuesday. Wire hit escrow on time. My commission was the biggest single check I'd taken in 3 years. I bought my wife a bracelet and took my kid to a Stars game and pretty much stopped thinking about Marcus. Then, about a month later, I ran into the previous owner at an industry mixer downtown. His name was Ken. He'd sold the building through a different agent originally before it came back on the market, and I picked it up. We got to talking, drinks in hand, and I mentioned the buyer. I said something like, "Guy knew the place better than I did." Ken's face did something I did not like. He set his drink down on the bar. He asked me to describe Marcus. I did. Gray suit, late 40s, short salt hair, cold hands, that smile. Ken said, "That's why I sold." I asked him what he meant. He told me that in the year before he put the building up, he'd gotten 4 separate complaints from tenants about a man wandering the floors after hours, coming out of stairwells, standing in the mechanical room once. A cleaning woman on 9 had walked into a conference room at 9 at night and found him sitting at the head of the table with the lights off. Security had no record of him badging in. The cameras caught him twice, but never entering, never leaving, just already inside. Ken said the descriptions all matched. Gray suit, salt hair, that smile. He said he sold the building because he could not figure out how the man was getting in, and he could not sleep anymore, and the police had been useless because nothing had actually been stolen or broken, and the tenants were threatening to leave. I asked him when the last sighting had been. He said about a year before he sold, which put it about a year and a half before Marcus walked into my lobby with a coffee from a place he shouldn't have known about and pressed the button for 8 without asking. I didn't tell Ken about the chair on 12. I don't know why, I just didn't. The building is under new management now. I drive past it sometimes on my way to other listings, and I look up at the 12th floor without meaning to. The lights are usually on up there, even late. I don't know if that means anything. I haven't gone back inside. Nobody has asked me to.